think in terms of truth and falseness. I think the more mature and honest way to approach these issues is to say, this is my faith tradition, and let's see what we have in common with one another, and we can share together. But I don't think that's enough either. What really makes it interesting when we're engaging in interreligious dialogue is learning what's different. How are we different from one another? That's fascinating. And I can learn something from how you do things differently than I do, or how you may think a little bit differently than I think. I can learn from this, and I think that benefits me as well as perhaps benefiting you from learning from me. So this is, I think, how we dialogue together. We have a lot in common between our traditions. The 5 pillars of Islam, for example, we have basically the same in Judaism. Iman, we call it emunah. It's the same word even in Hebrew, and it means belief in God. But we don't accept that Muhammad is the prophet of God. So that's okay. We still have a sense of belief in the unity of God, and we believe in prophets, and we have a lot in common. Salah. The word salat has an Aramaic, which is a Jewish language equivalent, slota, salat, and it means prayer. And we pray 3 times a day. We even have maghrib, we call it ma'ariv. It's the same prayer at the same time, and we do it 3 times. Muslims do it 5 times. Okay, there's a difference, but similarity. Zakat. Another word for zakat in the Quran is sadaqah. The word for zakat in Hebrew is tzedakah. We have the same word, and it's a required giving. It's not charity, it's a requirement to give. It's very similar to Islam. Exactly how Muslims do it is different than the way Jews do it in the mechanics, but the idea is exactly the same. Saum. Saum is fasting. How do you say fasting in Hebrew? Som. It's the same word. So we fast differently. We don't fast during Ramadan. We have 2 major 26-hour fasts, and we have a number of minor fasts that are only 1 day during daylight hours, but it's the same basic idea. Now, there are some differences. When we fast, we are usually mourning. It's a mourning process for us. In Ramadan, I don't think that's mourning. I think it has a different kind of consciousness raising for it. So there are differences, but also similarities. And then there's Hajj. We also have Hajj, but we call it Hag. It's the same word. And there are 3 times during the year when traditionally Jews make pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Every year, 3 times. We don't require it now because Jews are living all over the world and they can't make pilgrimage to Jerusalem. But we still call it Hag. We have so much in common, it's kind of astounding. But one of the things I think that's really important for Jews and Muslims to understand is that many times the differences between our traditions are cultural differences, not value differences. The values are almost identical. But since our Hajj feels differently than your Hajj, then we might feel that yours is a little bit foreign or strange to us. Usually, happy, normal people are not willing to spend all of their energy and effort to get the message out. But if you're angry and you're fearful, you spend a lot more energy. But there's so many cases that I'm familiar with in the US, for example, where Jews and Muslims work together. There's a wonderful organization called Sisterhood of Salam Shalom, where women, there are probably dozens and dozens of chapters around the US where Muslim women and Jewish women get together and talk and do social things together, and then organize and do political things together to work together to solve common problems. We have many programs. There's a wonderful program called New Ground, a project of Jewish-Muslim engagement. I forgot exactly what it's called. But this is a project in which Jews and Muslims train together as community organizers, and they work together on common themes and common interests, and they do wonderful projects, and they share a parking lot. And what brought them all together? The parking lot, because it's very expensive to build a big parking lot. And they said, well, during the year, Jews are praying on Saturday, Muslims are praying on Friday, and Christians are praying on Sunday. And so we use the parking lot at a different time, and sometimes during the year, the holidays very rarely conflict. And so they use that as a kind of entree to get together, and they actually built these community buildings together, and it's been very successful. I'm very hopeful. I mean, I have so many contacts with Muslim individuals and communities, and I know so many Jews who are also involved in this kind of work. We have found the problem is that there's a kind of anxiety and fear